It was a weird game today, fellas, because it was tied at half. We didn't get the offensive performance from Charleston that we were expecting from a team that is one of the best offensive teams, at least to start the season, in scoring in the country, averaging almost 100 points a game. Only 29 points in the first half, ended up a Liberty 21-point win, 68-47 today in the Field of 68 tip-offs finale from Charleston. Year 2 of this event is in the books, and we're wrapping it up here on After Dark. Thanks to everybody for joining us here on a Sunday night. And we're going to start with this game that we just called on the Field of 68's YouTube channel about an hour ago. Liberty, a huge win after an overtime loss yesterday against Florida Atlantic. A big performance from Zach Cleveland, a monster night, Jeff.
Yeah, he was sensational. And not just him. I mean, listen, they had a bunch of contributions from guys all across the board, but I thought Zach Cleveland stepped up. And, you know, when we're talking about Ante Brzovic over and over and over, it was Zach Cleveland that was clearly the best player in the second half. He did everything. He was Mr. Versatility, blocking shots, throwing passes, making life easier for everybody, scoring when he needed to. As you said, you know, the straight line drives. And really, Charleston's defense was abysmal. I mean, it was really bad.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't play great defensively. I thought that it was Liberty's ability to kind of figure out where they had mismatches and where they had advantages and continuing to exploit that. You know, they went to Zach Cleveland over and over and over again, and it worked over and over and over again. I thought that Isaiah Enan, coming in off the bench, hitting those 3 threes in the second half. He had 13 points. It was nice to see him kind of get it going a little bit. But overall, man, I think it's a little bit of a statement for how good, I guess, all three of these teams are. And especially Liberty, going on the road in an environment like this and just taking the air out of the building and taking the air out of Charleston after they just went up and put 119 points on Florida Atlantic, I think says a lot. And, you know, that's a very, very good Liberty team that I think is going to make noise in Conference USA this year.
Zach Cleveland finished with 4 blocks in this game. And to your point about Isaiah Enan, to be able to step up when he hasn't shot the 3-ball well so far this season. I think he only had 1 made 3 on the year coming into tonight. He was like 1 for 11 on the season from 3. So to hit those shots now in the second half and to power yourself to a win. I mean, Lazar Djokovic leading Charleston in scoring. Ante Brzovic had 8 in the first half, finished with 10. Djokovic, the leading scorer for Charleston tonight. And you're starting to see maybe some steps from Lazar, played at Xavier last year, transfers here to Charleston this season. They're consistently looking for more out of Lazar, out of that huge physical body. Saw a little bit more of that tonight.
He was more aggressive, more assertive. You know, I think for Charleston, they were without Jackson Prunty. He didn't play. He's going to be out a couple weeks after dislocating his shoulder again for the second time in the last few weeks. And C.J. Fulton wasn't 100%, even though Dr. Rob did deem him healthy.
Yeah. Did he play?
He did, but
did he play?
He did.
That's all I was saying is that he was going to play.
You did. But Dr. Rob's diagnosis might not have been completely 100% accurate because he was not himself. And for Ante Brzovic to be as effective as he can be, he has to have C.J. Fulton. He has to, because he's not a guy you can just give the ball to and say, hey, go make a play, right? A lot of what he gets is off entry passes, using angles from C.J. Fulton. It's off playing a 2-man game with those guys.
Yeah, I agree with that part of it. I think I would give the credit to Liberty's defense there because I thought that Ante got a lot of what he normally gets. There are a lot of times where he had a lot of stuff at the rim. He missed stuff at the rim.
True.
Lazar missed stuff at the rim.
Yep.
They weren't alone. There were a lot of guys that missed shots at the rim, and I think that the length and athleticism of Liberty's front line bothered them. And if there is a knock on this Charleston team, it's that there are times where they don't play up to the size and athleticism that I think they have. Like, they're never going to be a great defensive team. Like, they'll probably get better. But when you have a roster that's built around guys that are better offensively than they are defensively, then you're going to be a better offensive team than you are defensive. Like, it is what it is. But I thought that the way that Liberty was able to defend – I mean, Zach Cleveland said it in the postgame interview. When was the last time you saw Liberty get 9 blocks in a game? 2 guys with 4 blocks. Yeah. You know, and the one thing that Richie McKay did say to us before we got to these games, before we got down here to this event, was that they made a concerted effort in the portal this year to go out and get bigger, to get longer, to get more athletic, and as he put it, to not look like the JV team when they came out here in the field of 68 tip-off, and they didn't. And I thought that Owen Aquino and Isaiah Enan and Zach Cleveland, those guys up front, really, really made a difference around the basket.
You know what else? I thought they were the mentally tougher team as well. I really did. They've got some older guys, some who have played together. They've grown. They had a tough year last year, not just here, but making the transition into Conference USA. They seem like the mentally tougher team tonight. Now, again, I think Charleston can get there. But there's only two guys who have played together, and a lot of these other guys are young.
Yeah, you saw it early in the second half. There was a moment where Liberty took a 12-point lead, and I remember vividly Daywilk Tavares coming up the floor and being like, "Come on, guys, it's not over. Let's go." And they ran off, and then he went and got a bucket, and Chris Mack called a timeout. It kind of felt like Charleston accepted their fate with about 18, 17, 16 minutes left in that game. We just said, I don't think this is our night, instead of trying to find a way to be able to make it their night. And I think that's something that just sometimes happens with teams. I think it's something
they didn't impose their will on them. To me, you've got Ante Brzovic and Lazar Djokovic, who are 6'10", 6'11", and they never imposed their will. They got around the basket, but I don't know.
But those guys are that's not what they're wired to do.
They need to be better wired to be able to do that.
And they did it against Florida Atlantic, but Florida Atlantic is also their front line is more length and athleticism and finesse than what Liberty's front line is. Like, Owen Aquino's tough, man. You ain't backing him down, right? And I think that kind of got to Charleston a little bit. I think that their legs were gone a little bit. And I also just think, again, they got to a point where they're like, this is just not our night, and had just accepted their fate instead of continuing to fight. And I'll tell you this, that's going to be something that I promise you Chris Mack and this coaching staff is going to be hammering home for the rest of this week.
Fewest points that Charleston had scored in a game 8 years to the day. 47 points for a team that averages over 98 points a game on a young season. On a young season,
they got a lot of offensive weapons, and they'll get better because, again, Darren Boyd looked like the Darren Boyd we thought we might get the other night in his first game back from 8.5 months off knee surgery.
Yep. All right. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on here?
I just credit to these coaches for this event. We said it on Friday night, but it has been a blast to do these the last 2 years. Yes. I cannot wait to get down to Lynchburg to do this again next season.
I think it is in Lynchburg right now. Have you checked the weather?
It's a little bit more. It's about the same temperature as it is here.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's probably a little bit chillier. But
so I don't need to bring a heavy jacket.
No, you don't need to bring a heavy jacket. I think that you'll probably be okay.
No,
but I mean, look, the buy-in from these guys to do stuff like this is something that I think, one, needs to happen for teams that are at this level, right? You got to find a way to be able to get creative, to get people to pay attention to you, to be able to generate a little bit of revenue, be able to create another way to get money coming in for NIL and for collectives and for all of that, right? But it's no secret that at the mid-major level, you're not going to have the same kind of finances that the high-major level does, and to be able to get teams to be able to get the kids to either stay or compete with some of those higher-level programs for some of these guys, you got to be able to spend a little bit, and you got to find a way to be able to create relevancy and create attention and create revenue. So credit to them for that. And I also just think stuff like this is fun, and it's what makes the sport special, right? If you're going to college basketball to get you're not watching the best basketball players in the world play at the highest level. If you're doing that, you're watching the NBA playoffs, right? It is what it is. It's the NBA for a reason. It's the best league of basketball. It's the most difficult job to find in the entire world. What makes college basketball special is the environments, is the passion, is the fans, is the student sections. It is these little micro communities that care about nothing more than just Charleston basketball. Last year, I don't think anybody would have expected to walk into Boca Raton and go to an FAU game and see a loud and raucous environment that was essentially a party for 2 hours every time that FAU played. So
these are three of the better mid-major programs in America right now. Mm-hmm. And